KingKong, the heart of the beast. Darkness blanketed the jungle of SkullIsland, accompanied only by the whispering wind and rustling leaves. Emily Carter carefully stepped through the thick underbrush, curiosity battling with unease. Her expedition team had lost contact with their security detail, and now only a few of them remained. Suddenly, a deep roar thundered from the distance. The ground trembled, trees snapped and crashed to the earth. A massive shadow emerged from the mist.
KingKong!
Panic erupted. Several men raised their rifles. Emily screamed, but it was too late. Gunfire shattered the silence.
No! Don't shoot!
Kong roared in anger. With a mighty swing of his arm, he sent everything flying. But then he stopped. His glowing eyes locked onto Emily, who stood frozen, not in fear, but in awe. She looked up at the towering beast and slowly raised her hand, as if to show she meant no harm. Kong hesitated. He tilted his head, studying the tiny human before him. Emily swallowed hard and whispered,
"You're not a monster, are you?"
Kong didn't answer. He simply stood there, his heavy breath filling the air, but instead of attacking, he just watched her. In the days that followed, Emily slowly gained Kong's trust. She began leaving fruit near the spots where she knew he wandered. At first, he merely observed, but eventually he accepted her offerings as if testing her sincerity. One afternoon, as Emily sat on a large rock, Kong unexpectedly came closer than ever before. She held her breath, but didn't flee. She held up a banana, smiling.
"You like these, don't you?"
Kong blinked, then unexpectedly reached out. But instead of eating it right away, he hesitated, then offered it back to her. She laughed softly.
"Thank you. I never thought I'd have a friend like you."
Kong rumbled low in his throat, a deep, resonating sound that, surprisingly, wasn't menacing. It almost sounded like a chuckle. One day, the roaring of helicopter blades shattered the peace. The government had discovered Kong's existence and intended to capture him for study. Emily sprinted to Kong's usual spot, panic gripping her.
Emily sprinted to Kong's usual spot, panic gripping her.
But Kong didn't run. As the helicopters opened fire, he bellowed in rage, tossing military vehicles aside as if they were mere toys. Screams filled the air. A soldier grabbed Emily, pulling her back. She cried, tears streaming down her face. Kong faltered. He looked at her, his dark eyes filled with something Emily had never seen before. And then, the traps were sprung. A massive electrified net shot out, ensnaring him. Emily screamed. Kong crashed to the ground, his mighty body trembling under the shocking volts. Emily couldn't stand by and watch Kong be turned into a test subject. She made a decision, one that could cost her everything. Breaking into the top-secret facility, she found Kong shackled in a giant steel room. His eyes flickered open. He was battered, weak, but when he saw her, a spark of recognition returned. She frantically worked on the locks.
"We have to go now."
Alarms blared. Guards swarmed in. Emily turned to Kong.
"Run, don't worry about me."
But Kong didn't leave. Instead, he scooped her up onto his shoulder.
"No, Kong, you'll get shot."
He let out a deafening roar, smashing through the steel walls. Gunfire erupted. Helicopters swarmed above. Emily shouted over the chaos.
"We're almost to the harbor. You can swim back to SkullIsland."
Kong gave a small nod. At the water's edge, he turned to look at her one last time. She whispered, eyes brimming with tears.
"You have to go."
Kong reached out his enormous hand, gently touching her his way of saying goodbye. She asked, her voice trembling.
Will you be okay?
Kong stared into her eyes. Then, with one final, earth-shaking roar, one that seemed to echo with a promise, he leaped into the ocean and disappeared beneath the waves. The security team lost track and King Kong returned to the jungle safely. Years later, Emily stood on a ship, gazing at Skull Island in the